All right, most everybody's here. Okay, in the Oceanography class page, on the right-hand side, you'll see something new. There's a thing that says Fish Information Project. And I mentioned this like briefly yesterday. If you click on the Fish Information Project itself, it just takes you to a SharePoint file, which is actually a template for the Fish Information Project. When you click on it, it opens up a PowerPoint document. And the important thing about this template is the dimensions of it. In other words, the width and the height is correct so that it'll correctly display on the TV that it's going to go on. I'll show you how that TV works in a second. But the plan is that I've assigned each of you a fish kind of randomly, in the sense, not really randomly, but I've got a list of the fish in alphabetical order, and then I just put your names in alphabetical order by last name, and whatever happened, happened. And so this is a fish that actually appears in the library aquarium, and it's called a lagoon triggerfish. That's the most common name, but people also call it the Picasso triggerfish because it's said that if Pablo Picasso ever painted a fish, that's what he'd paint it to look like. Underneath that, Rhinacanthus acaleatus. That's the Latin name. So you know this is the genus and the species, and I want you to include that, and it's got to be correct. So genus is always capitalized, and the species is always lowercase, and it's always written in italics, and that way it indicates to people that it's the scientific or the Latin name of the fish. So fish, oftentimes, like any other animal, has a common name, but then beside the common name, there's the Latin name or the scientific name. So the scientific or Latin name is the name that everyone around the world agrees with, but the common name depends upon language. It depends upon, like the location on the earth or what it's locally called. That can be different in different places. So the idea is that if somebody comes up to the aquarium and sees a fish, they could wait for as the slideshow goes through and find the fish they're interested in, see it visually, learn the name, find out some information. And what's important is that that information is as informative as possible, but not too wordy. People lose their patience real quick with reading a lot of stuff. And because it'll be a slideshow that'll continuously loop, if people only have 10 seconds to read, you can't put 30 seconds worth of stuff on the slide because that's also really annoying if you're like halfway through and then it switches over. So, I mean, for this fish, it's found in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. It's an omnivore, which means it eats both plant and animal material. And honestly, it'll pretty much eat anything. They're really active swimmers. They protect their territory. There's a spine on the top and the bottom of the fish, and it'd actually be useful here to like include an image of how that works or how they're stuck into space. Basically, if a triggerfish feels as if it's being threatened, they know where the holes are in the rock and the reef structure around where they live. They run into that hole head first, and then you can actually see part of the spine on the lower part of the fish here, and then there's another spine on this part. It's like a bone that sticks up and sticks down, and those bones then stick into holes in the rock, and then a predator that comes along to try to like eat it or grab it from behind can't pull the fish out of the hole. So that's why they're actually called trigger fish, because much like the action of a trigger on a gun, the fish is able to extend those little spines to hold it into place. So there's a couple other trigger fish. There's a Niger trigger, and I don't know. I think that might be all the other triggers we have. There's a Niger trigger in one of the 300-gallon tanks in the hallway. So this slide is just super basic. It doesn't look that great. It's not special. You could change the background, you could change the font, you could change whatever you want, but don't make it too busy and too distracting because then it just gets kind of like tacky and whatnot. So anyway, when you click on the Fish Information Project itself in Schoology, it only brings up that template, and then you can just delete whatever's on the template, add your stuff to it, and then submit it like you would anything else. But what's important is to read about what I wrote that you should include and to find what your fish is. So in the materials section of the class, in the biological oceanography folder, which is our current unit. There's the plan for the week, and in the plan I've mentioned about the fish information project. So down here, this is the, like, I guess I could call it the fish information project information, which is very kind of like redundant. Oh, Siri thinks I'm talking to her on my phone. That's funny. I'll call it description because that's what it says. So the fish information project description, that has clear information about what we're looking for. So the goal is to have a nice display over the aquarium to show you like what that looks like. This is well, this isn't actually the 550. This is the tank that's beside it. But you may or may not have noticed over top of the aquariums there are these big TV sets, and those TVs we can display anything we want on them. And I haven't had them running this year, like for a bunch of reasons. But in previous years, you may have seen slideshows with fish or coral. Uh, the one that's over this tank usually plays a movie that's kind of like on a loop. But I want to get them up and running this year. And for the 550-gallon tank, there's brand new fish in it that we didn't have on the previous one. So once you all complete your slide, we'll put it together in one slideshow, and then it'll run on the top. All right, so that's the idea. Make a nice display for the 550. That's the biggest tank, the one that's furthest to the left, the one that's closest to the doorway of my room. To see what, so people know what they're seeing. The aquarium has a monitor over the top. Your job is use that template, make a single slide with the following information. You want a picture of the fish. It's very, if you just put names of fish up there and people don't know which one it is, they can't tell what's going on. So if you've ever been to an aquarium or a zoo, you know, there's always a little information plaque, and it'll have a picture of the animal. That's how people identify what it is. The common name, the Latin name, which is the scientific name, correctly capitalized and italicized. Where is it found in the ocean? So some of these fish are found everywhere, all throughout the oceans. Some are found only on coral reefs. Some of them, one of them is a brackish water fish that actually lives both in the ocean and in freshwater rivers. It can swim back and forth between fresh and salt water. Some of the fish like hide a lot. Some of them are out all the time. There's a snowflake moray eel in this tank, and that's one of the fish. And you guys can see it because it's always in the back of the tank. You can see from the fish room. As soon as we put food in the tank, it'll come out and eat. But normally it like hides all the time. So some of the fish are really active. Some are not so active. Some vigorously defend their territory. Other ones are just like ho hum, whatever. The diet, typically fish are either herbivores, like they always eat plant material, or they're carnivores, eating other fish. Some only eat shellfish. Some only eat invertebrates like snails and crabs, things like that. So, and some are just completely omnivores. Some will just eat anything. It doesn't really matter. And what other interesting information? So, on the thing about the triggerfish, that interesting thing was about how the triggers stick up on the fish. There's clownfish on this list, so there's interesting things about clownfish and their behaviors. There's all kinds of different stuff. Sometimes the interesting thing is about their coloration. Sometimes the interesting things about what they eat. Sometimes what's interesting is how they relate with other fish. So that's the idea. And the design criteria, make your slide informative but not too wordy. So you've got to balance that. You don't want to put too much information on it, but you don't want to leave too little off. You want to keep it interesting. And it's got to be visually appealing, but don't make it look too busy. You know, don't make it look trashy. There's a fine line between making it look like elegant and wonderful and crossing that line and just making it like a big pile of trash. The template slide's really basic, but you can make yours as awesome as you want. So this is a list of the inhabitants in that 550-gallon tank. And it turns out there are actually 17 different species of fish, but there's 15 on this list. And then these are the assignments. So you just do the one that's beside your name, and then that'll be good. And whenever you're back at school, you know, you can obviously watch the fish and see your fish and be like, that's my fish and that's my slide. And we'll all get it all put together. Okay, so that's the plan. And we haven't updated those fish information things for a couple of years. So that'll be really good. And it'll be really nice. Some of the fish, actually, let's see. some of the fish in that tank have appeared in Finding Nemo. I didn't put the copper band butterfly fish on the list, but there's a copper banded butterfly fish in Finding Nemo, and that's in the tank. But there's a regal or hippotang, which is dory, and then clownfish. Except the species of clownfish in the 550 are clark eye clowns. They're not exactly the same species as in Finding Nemo, which are called pergola clowns, but it's good enough. Anyway, so now you know how the Fish Information Project works. I'm not going to keep you here any longer today. I told you about information about the palotoxin article yesterday. So if you didn't read the Power of Power palotoxin article and do the palotoxin activity, a good place to start from that is here in the plan for the week, because I've got the links to the article and the activity right here. And then there's a couple news stories that can help you out. The one from Quebec, one from Australia, and the one from the U.S. They're just real quick, you know, TV news clips. And some of them are kind of redundant, but it shows you, that people run into this problem in different places of the world. So you got time to work on the Fish Information Project and the palotoxin assignment. Just the way those go, let's see. Let me get back to the beginning. So the palotoxin assignment, have that done for Friday, and these are all like midnight or whatever. So Friday, and the Fish Information Project by Monday. So you've got time for class today and class tomorrow to work on both of those, and you should be able to get them done, today and tomorrow. Those are good like remote activities. I haven't heard otherwise, but I guess the school's plan is to come back on Monday. We'll see how that goes. So it's kind of good that we'll be back together in person, but it's also not so good for other reasons. But at least we'll get to be able to do some stuff uh, with the fish and with the coral as safely as we can whenever we're back in person. All right. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can turn on your mic and ask them. Otherwise, you're free to go and work on the palotoxin assignment and the Fish Information Project. Any questions? Okie dokie. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you always check in every class, every period, every day. I'll see you in class tomorrow, but I'll stay here in case you have any questions.